I've got what feels like very strained relationships with a bunch of the kids. I'm not in a good place with everybody. And it's not that I'm trying to be angry or trying to hold them accountable in this moment or anything like that. I don't feel like I've got the respect that I should have.
I think that was like so cute. We're not straight.
Giving his friend a ride somewhere. And yep.
Not everyone agrees with our right to marry.
I don't want to be worried about them on our wedding.
No, I'm not okay. I'm in a funk. It's a kind of this.
Season 20 of Sister Wives is shaping up to be the most chaotic yet. Secret family feuds, whispered betrayals, and a mountain of new leaks that TLC doesn't want you to see. Are the Brown family finally turning on Cody for good? Did Robin really cross a line that no one can forgive? And who's missing from the Season 20 teaser trailer that fans are losing their minds over? The rumors for 2025 are out of control, and today, we're pulling back the curtain on every shocking twist you haven't heard yet. She found out like the rest of us, through a screen. Mary sat in quiet disbelief, watching Leon's announcement echo across the internet, each word slicing through years of shared history like it was paper thin. "I am not my mother's daughter," Leon had once written in a cryptic caption. Now, the truth had emerged, not just their identity, but the truth of their distance. This wasn't just a coming out moment, it was a coming undone moment. A rupture between mother and child made public, raw, and irreversible. For Mary, it was a heartbreak she never saw coming. She had long clung to the idea that her bond with Leon was unshakable, maybe even immune to the chaos unraveling the rest of the Brown family. But in that moment, alone, blindsided, and stripped of context, she realized she wasn't even part of the conversation anymore. Her child had crossed a threshold without her, and she wasn't invited. Leon's revelation wasn't just about identity, it was a protest. A quiet but resolute rejection of the pain that had accumulated over years, of being silenced, misunderstood, pushed to conform. And for Mary, it was a mirror held up to the consequences of emotional absence, of years spent upholding a family image while her child quietly disappeared inside themselves. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was deafening. Mary didn't speak publicly, Leon didn't look back. Fans, stunned, were left to read between the lines. The distance, the coldness, the grief of a relationship so fractured that even healing seemed like a fairy tale. This wasn't just a personal crisis, it was a generational one. A queer child's plea for visibility met with a mother's outdated script for love. In the quiet of that moment, Mary wasn't just heartbroken, she was lost, and the world was watching. One moment, Cody was weeping about family unity. The next, he was shouting about betrayal like a man auditioning for a Shakespearean tragedy. That's the ride everyone had come to know, the Cody coaster, unpredictable and exhausting. One week he was preaching togetherness, the next he was punishing the very people who dared to want autonomy. And like clockwork, Robin sat beside him, blinking back tears, nodding in solemn agreement, performing the perfect partner until the cameras cut and the real silence began. Leon's announcement wasn't just a curveball for Mary, it was a ripple through the entire Brown universe. But Cody? He treated it like a minor plot inconvenience. His usual blend of dramatic concern and checked-out detachment spun into high gear. "I just want everyone to be happy," he claimed, voice cracking on cue. But behind the curtain, there was no call, no hug, no fatherly attempt to bridge the gap. Just another moment for the Cody coaster to lurch forward, loud, erratic, and deeply performative. And Robin, the ever-saintly queen of concern, was right there to comfort him. Not Leon, not Mary, but Cody. Her role wasn't to support the child navigating one of the most vulnerable moments of their life. It was to validate Cody's emotional fatigue. In every confessional, she framed herself as a pillar of compassion. But in the chaos of this revelation, her silence toward Leon spoke louder than any of her tearful monologues. The real twist? Robin knew first. Long before Mary. Long before it was public. And yet, no warning. No softening of the blow. Just another secret kept, another truth repackaged for convenience. That wasn't support. It was control. And by the time the ride stopped, the damage was already done. Mary had built her world around one truth. She was a mother. Not just any mother, but Leon's. Through the chaos of polygamy, the breakdowns, the betrayals, the silences, and suffocating smiles, Leon was her anchor, her only child, her only constant. So when the relationship began to crack, it wasn't Leon's identity Mary was mourning. It was the story she had written in her mind, the one where they'd always be close, always understand each other, always have that unshakable bond. That story was slipping through her fingers, and she couldn't stop it. In her confessionals, Mary fumbled with words like a woman trying to read a script she never rehearsed. "I love my child no matter what," she'd say. But her eyes betrayed her, frantic, blinking, searching for a way to make sense of what was already gone. The pain wasn't about pronouns. It wasn't about Leon coming out. It was about feeling left behind, forgotten in a future that no longer included her. The child she had raised, defended, clung to, was now someone she didn't fully recognize. And the distance wasn't just emotional. It was physical, public, final. She wasn't the first parent to feel blindsided by change. But for Mary, who had staked her entire self-worth on being the good mom, the loyal wife, the faithful believer, this felt like annihilation. Because if Leon didn't need her, then who was she? It wasn't rejection, not exactly. Leon wasn't attacking her. They were choosing self-preservation over performance. But to Mary, it felt like erasure. One child, one vision of motherhood. And now, one long, hollow silence. The kind that echoed louder than any argument, the kind that didn't end with a hug or a reconciliation arc. Just a recalibration she never saw coming. Robin once painted their love story as sacred, the soulmate pairing that would redeem the family's chaos. But behind closed doors, and sometimes right on camera, what emerged wasn't intimacy. It was negotiation. It was performance. It was control. The myth of eternal passion curdled into a quiet power struggle, where affection became currency, and sex was never just about love, it was leverage. Cody, increasingly volatile and spiritually unmoored, didn't seem to know if he wanted a partner or a subordinate. And Robin, who once sobbed about wanting sister wives in unity, seemed more than willing to trade in the illusion for dominance. What they shared wasn't a marriage in any traditional sense. It was a pact, a codependent arrangement built on his need to be worshipped and her willingness to contort herself into whatever kept his gaze. But over time, even that wasn't enough. She said no more than she said yes. And not just to sex, to connection, to accountability, to conflict resolution. Co-sleeping with the kids became a fixture, not an accident. A soft barrier between herself and Cody, cloaked in the language of motherhood, but fueled by something colder. Denial, avoidance, and emotional distancing dressed up as virtue. Cody, whose entire sense of masculinity was built on obedience being rewarded with affection, spiraled. Because in this house, obedience wasn't foreplay, it was foregone. Robin didn't need to seduce him anymore. She already had what mattered, his loyalty, his money, his abandonment of everyone else. So why bother with intimacy when power was already secured? And yet, the tension lingered. You could see it in Cody's body language, in his escalating meltdowns over loyalty and betrayal. The man was touch-starved and emotionally bankrupt, and somewhere deep down, he knew it. The very woman he isolated his world for was now rationing him in the same way he'd rationed love to his other wives. The irony was suffocating, and maybe, for Robin, intentional. Cody used to walk into a room like he was leading a movement, chest puffed, voice booming, eyes darting for affirmation. But somewhere between season 15 and the implosion of his family, the man stopped being a leader and started performing like one. He wasn't leading anymore. He was spiraling. And not quietly. Viewers noticed the erratic shifts first. 1 minute weeping, the next barking commands, then grinning like a talk show host gone off script. His emotions didn't just change. They ricocheted. People started whispering about testosterone. Not because it's taboo, but because the patterns lined up. The inflated ego, the manic rage, the fixation on virility, loyalty, and power. It was like Cody couldn't accept that he was aging. Biologically, emotionally, socially. His daughters were calling him out. His wives were leaving. Even his fans were slipping away. So instead of sitting with the grief, he fought it with protein shakes and delusion. There's a paranoia that sets in when a man like Cody, once surrounded by adoration and structured chaos, starts losing his audience. He began treating every conversation as a battle, every challenge as betrayal. In one breath, he demanded obedience. In the next, he collapsed into victimhood. The rage wasn't even coherent anymore. It was desperate, twitchy, suspicious, and deeply, deeply fragile. And yet, he still dressed it up as dominance, still claimed his masculinity was being undermined by the liberal attitudes of his kids. He framed emotional independence as rebellion, accused them of turning against him when all they really did was grow up and stop performing. What Cody never realized was that his authority wasn't stolen. It withered. Slowly, tragically. Like a cult leader who kept shouting after the followers had all gone home. The man you see now, he's not full of testosterone. He's full of ghosts, of who he used to be, who he pretended to be, and the people who no longer believe in either. Robin sits in that grand, echoing mansion like it's her birthright. 6,000 square feet of polished floors, ornate furniture, and silence she never earned. The woman who once cried about not having a couch now floats through luxury, while the rest of the Browns quietly ration groceries and label leftovers. On camera, she plays the part of a humble, frugal mother just trying to make things work. Off camera, it's private security systems, Cartier bracelets, and rumors of a hefty down payment allegedly pulled from the communal family pot. Here's the kicker. She didn't build that house. She didn't even contribute in the same way the other wives did. While Janelle sacrificed her retirement and Christine held together a crumbling household, Robin played the long con. The receipts may be blurred, but the patterns are crystal clear. Credit applications mysteriously tied to Cody's name, land deals that favored her, and an emotional economy where her tears held more currency than Mary's decades of labor. Even the children knew the imbalance. Food was labeled in some homes because there wasn't enough to go around. Utility bills went unpaid. Christmas gifts were uneven. But Robin never skipped a salon appointment. And somehow, in the midst of divorce, grief, and unraveling relationships, she ended up in the biggest house with the fewest children and the strongest grip on Cody's loyalty. It's not just about square footage. It's about symbolism. Robin's mansion isn't a home. It's a trophy built on illusion, manipulation, and selective victimhood. She didn't climb the same mountain. She helicoptered to the top while the others clawed their way up with bleeding hands. And now she stands there, tears on cue, playing shocked that no one wants to come visit. Of course they don't. That house may be big, but it's emotionally bankrupt. It all goes back to Lehi, Utah, where the Brown family wasn't perfect, but they were something whole. There were traditions, rhythms, the clatter of shared kitchens, the noise of too many kids squeezed around too few tables, the comfort of chaos that somehow still felt like home. It was messy, but it was theirs. And then Robin arrived, not as an addition, but as a reset button. From the moment she entered, the old ways were quietly bulldozed, not blended. It started small. A new set of rules that didn't come from consensus, but from deference. Deference to Robin's comfort, to her kids' needs, to her tear-streaked boundaries. Family dinners that once rotated between homes suddenly stalled when Robin had a migraine. Movie nights grew cold when her children didn't feel safe. And slowly, what had been communal became conditional. The original Brown kids felt it instantly, a reshuffling of loyalty where their memories didn't matter and their routines were rewritten without apology. One of the most biting metaphors was food. Where Janelle and Christine's homes had shared pantries and open fridges, Robin's introduced labels, sharpied names on yogurt cups, hidden snacks, guarded cabinets. The message was loud, this is ours, not yours. And the parents didn't talk about it, but the kids did. They fought in whispers behind closed doors. They picked sides without knowing why. Some started to resent their own mothers, wondering why they couldn't be more agreeable, like Robin. But Robin didn't bend. She didn't adapt to the culture she entered. She reshaped it in her image. And Cody let her. He bulldozed history for her comfort, erased Christine's patience, ignored Janelle's logic, and left Mary watching from a porch that no longer felt like hers. Lehi was more than a location. It was a symbol of what the Browns had before hierarchy replaced harmony. When Robin came in, the family didn't expand. It fractured. Quietly, strategically, and permanently. And then there was the knighting. Yes, you heard that right. In a scene so bizarre it felt like deleted footage from a low-budget medieval cosplay convention, Cody Brown decided to knight his son-in-law Caleb. He actually picked up a sword, real or not, it doesn't matter, and tapped it ceremonially on Caleb's shoulders like some deluded prophet king. The only thing missing was a crown of gold spray paint and a fog machine. What was meant to be a blessing came off as a parody, and not a good one. But it wasn't just cringe, it was telling. Because this wasn't a sweet father-in-law moment. This was Cody, grasping for authority in a kingdom that no longer exists. He wasn't passing down wisdom, he was resurrecting control, cloaking his fragile ego in religious theater and patriarchal nostalgia. And Robin, of course, was beaming in the background, treating the whole thing like a sacred ritual instead of a slow-motion train wreck. You could practically hear the Gregorian chant swelling in his head, even as his adult children exchanged side-eyes off camera. The sword wasn't just a prop, it was a mirror, a reflection of how Cody sees himself. A spiritual warrior, a man of divine purpose, a father whose approval is some holy rite of passage. But to everyone else, it looked like a man so out of touch with reality, he turned a simple family moment into a Renaissance fair fever dream. There was no humility, no humor, no connection, just performative power, cloaked in doctrine and desperation. And honestly, who gave this man a platform? Who let him turn sacred rituals into viral meme content? The knighting of Caleb wasn't a bonding moment. It was a funeral for Cody's credibility, buried under a plastic sword and the delusion that anyone still sees him as the king. It was supposed to be a moment of reckoning, a panel where survivors of polygamy could finally speak their truth. But when the cameras rolled and the real stories started pouring out, stories of spiritual manipulation, emotional neglect, and systemic abuse, Robin and Cody didn't lean in. They recoiled. Not physically, but emotionally. Instead of absorbing the pain, they deflected it. Instead of listening, they performed. Robin's eyes welled with strategic tears, while Cody's jaw clenched in performative outrage, not at the abuse being described, but at the implication that he could ever be part of the problem. The survivors used insider language, phrases like righteous coercion and obedience-based love, terms that should have pierced the hearts of anyone raised in that same belief system. But instead, Robin rushed to spiritualize everything, claiming her family's version of polygamy was different. Cody doubled down on patriarchal platitudes, painting himself as a misunderstood father figure just trying to hold it all together. In that moment, it was painfully clear. They weren't there to hear survivors, they were there to protect their legacy. And this is what makes the scene so disturbing. The absolute refusal to surrender the spotlight, even when it belongs to someone else. The emotional discomfort was thick. You could feel it in the silence after someone shared a trauma, only to be met with spiritual gaslighting disguised as compassion. It wasn't empathy, it was ego. For every survivor who spoke out hoping for validation, there was a dismissive nod or a pained wince from Cody and Robin, like they were the ones under attack. The power dynamics were on full display. This wasn't just a missed opportunity, it was a chilling reminder that some people will hijack even the most sacred spaces to preserve their own mythology. And the cameras never cut. It was never really a church, it wasn't even a functioning family by the end. What Cody built wasn't a kingdom, it was a stage. A man so desperate to be revered, he mistook control for love and obedience for loyalty. He postured like a prophet, flexing his chest and quoting scripture. But what he really wanted was a flock that clapped on cue. And now, the flock is gone. His pulpit is a recliner in Robin's living room, and the congregation consists of one emotionally exhausted wife and a mountain of debt no one wants to claim. Janelle saw through it first, not with rage, but with reason. Her exit wasn't loud, it was surgical. The woman who once gave up everything for this man, her money, her independence, her damn 401k, finally decided that surviving wasn't the same as living. And when she walked away, something shattered in Cody that no testosterone patch could fix. The illusion of control, the myth of the patriarch, the fantasy of eternal plural unity, all gone. The poetic irony? Cody's body still screams alpha, bulging biceps, gym-sculpted pecs, but spiritually, he's hollow. A failed cult leader with no gospel left to preach. His charisma curdled into condescension. His family, once 18 strong, has scattered like survivors from a storm, each one carrying their own trauma, their own silence. And yet he still clings to the title, father, husband, leader, as if titles mean anything without trust, as if flexing on camera could erase years of emotional abandonment. He didn't lose a family, he broke it, systematically, deliberately, and in the end, the only person who still kneels at the altar of Cody Brown is Cody Brown. Let this be a lesson. Charisma isn't leadership, control isn't love, and nice pecs mean nothing when no one's left to follow you. If you think Season 20 is going to be just another round of Cody's excuses and Robin's tears, think again. What's coming next could flip the entire Sister Wives legacy upside down. Don't miss a single scandal, leak, or emotional reveal. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because I'm Amin, and this is TLC Soapbox, where the truth behind reality TV finally gets exposed.